So, in this guide, we'll be covering the encoder options available to you in OBS Studio, what bitrate you should be using for what resolution, and go over some audio options and filters and what they do so you can have a booming, sexy voice for your viewers to enjoy. My name is Nubs, and this is Streaming for Noobs. Let's get started. Okay guys, so here we are in OBS Studio. Let's jump into settings and get started. Okay, so here we are in the video tab, and as you see we have a base canvas resolution, output scaled resolution, downscale filter, and the common FPS values. Now essentially what this does is base canvas resolution is the resolution of your desktop monitor which is running at the moment. So as you can see for myself, I have a 1080p monitor, so my base canvas resolution is 1920 by 1080. If you have a 1440p or a 4K monitor, then that will most likely be the case base canvas resolution that you'll be running at. Now the output scaled resolution is the resolution at to which you will be sending the video to Twitch, and this is determined by your upload speed of your internet. And if you have anything above a 5 meg upload speed on speed test, you are able to run a 720p stream, as you need at least 3500 bitrate to run 720 at 30 fps. If you can manage to run a 4500 bitrate stream, then you are able to be running a nice 60 fps stream as well. Now the way to determine if you're able to run those bitrates is you do a speed test, see what your speed test upload is, and then take about 75% of that number, and that will be your cap bitrate number. You do not want to go past the 75%, as then you will cause dropped frames, as the internet will always fluctuate regardless if it's fiber, ADSL, wireless, doesn't matter. If you keep it to a 75% ratio of what your upload cap is, you can't go wrong. However, there is a bitrate cap per resolution, as going anything above a certain point makes no difference at all to the stream, other than cause your viewers to have to download at an extraordinary rate of bitrate, and that will just cause them to constantly buffer. Alright, the third option we have is a downscale filter. Now what this does essentially is it will provide a small image sharpness enhancement for your downscaled resolution of your choice. Now if you're going to be streaming at the same resolution as your base canvas resolution, this won't really make a difference, as you're not downscaling at all. However, if you do downscale from 1080p to 720 or something else, depending on your monitor, you want to be choosing the highest sample rate for downscale filtering, as that will give you the sharpest and crispest image for your stream, as this mostly affects the fast motions and text in the stream games. Now the final option is the FPS values. Now this is entirely dependent on what type of content you'll be running, as if you're going to be doing something slow paced like a card game or a strategy game, you don't need to be running at a 60 fps, as that's just taxing your system unnecessarily, and you can perfectly be fine with running at 30 fps to give a pleasurable viewing experience. The option is there to keep it 60 fps. Just note that the higher fps you are running, the more encoding power is required from your system. Alright, so that is it for the video tab. Next we'll be going to output, where we'll be fine-tuning all your bitrate settings and the quality settings of your stream. Now when you first get into this menu for the first time, you'll only have a output mode set to simple, so you won't have all these options. So what you have to do is select the drop down menu and select advanced. First option we have available to us here is the encoder. This essentially will do all the hard work of encoding your stream, making sure the picture comes nice and pretty through to Twitch for your viewers to enjoy. Now depending on what type of rig you're running, this will depend on what type of encoder you're going to be choosing. First option is the X264, which is making your CPU run the encoding power for your stream, and we'll go in depth about that in a second. Secondly, you have the NVIDIA NVENC H64, which is the encoder option for the NVIDIA GPU cards. And thirdly, you have the AMD encoder for the AMD GPUs. Now, say if you're running an AMD card, I would highly recommend, if your CPU can handle it, to choose the CPU to handle the encoding, as AMD do not have a dedicated encoder on their card installed, and they purely rely on their software to encode your streams. Next, we have the enforced streaming service encoder settings. This you leave unticked, as all it does is force your stream to run at CBR rates and keep to the cap of the bitrate that the streaming service is requiring of you. As we'll be setting this ourselves, we don't need to worry about the streaming service enforcing this for us, so you can just leave this unticked, as we'll be choosing CBR anyway. The next option we have here is called the rescale output, which is what basically the video tab already does for you, except the main difference here, and it's very important, is when you select rescale output in the output tab, this is using then your CPU to encode your stream as a 720p instead of your GPU running it at 720p on the stream. This will just add extra taxing on your CPU unnecessarily, so please do not select rescale output in the output tab, as you already done this in your video tab. And moving on, we have our rate control. Rate control basically determines the rate at which the frames is encoded to the stream. Now, we'll be using CBR as the most reliant, as this is called a constant bitrate, meaning that the rate will be constantly sent to the stream at a specific bitrate of our choosing. Now for the bitrate, this will depend entirely on what type of upload you have available to you. If you're going to be running a 720p stream, you're going to want anything between 3500 and 5000 bitrate. That will equal to a 5 meg to 7 meg upload speed on your line. As I mentioned before, you need 75% of your line available just for the bitrate, and the rest for variations and dips in the line speeds. The biggest thing to think about considering your bitrate is the fact that this is at speeds what your viewers need to download your stream. If you're not an affiliate or a partner, the chance of you getting transcoding on your stream is next to nothing. So the less bitrate you force your viewers to download, the better their viewing experience will be, as they will have no option to downgrade the quality of the stream to a different resolution, which is more appeasing to their downloads. Therefore, I would recommend, if you're a non-affiliate or even affiliates themselves, try not to push past 4,500 to 5,000, as that is really the cap for non-partner streamers. Some say you can push 6,000 if you're going to be running a 1080p stream, but that's up to you. The following option we have is called the keyframe interval. Now, all streaming platforms that, as far as I'm aware, use a 2-second keyframe interval. Essentially what keyframes are the points in the video where the entire frame is sent instead of just the differences from the previous frame. Having a keyframe interval of 2 seconds means that it takes at most 2 seconds for the viewer to catch up to a point where they can properly display the feed from your stream. Alright, and the following option we have is the preset. Now this is for NVIDIA specific only. The AMD ones have different options, and same as H.264. So if you have an NVIDIA card, you want to keep to quality and max quality depending on what generation GPU you have. If you have a 10 series like myself, as I have a 1060, you want to keep to quality, just because of how taxing the preset can be on your GPU. If you put it to max quality, you might end up having rendering issue errors on your stream, and that will just cause dropped frames and issues with buffering on your stream. So just keep it to quality. However, if you do have a 20 series and up, feel free to bump it up to max quality, as those cards can handle it no problem. Alright, so the next option we have here is profile. And this is essentially hardware acceleration for compressing and sharpening your image. The recommended option is high, as this gives you the best and sharpest image compression for your encoding. However, if your system is struggling a little bit and you're getting some encoding lag, etc., then by all means switch to Bane, as that is the less taxing one, but still a good quality compression. By all means, do not choose baseline, as there is zero hardware acceleration involved with this one, and your image will suffer for it. So just keep to high and main only. And the next option we have here is look ahead. For 99% of cases, this option will be unchecked, as all this mainly is for low motion games, as it allows the encoder to dynamically select the number of B frames between 0 and the number of B frames you specify. As B frames are great because they increase the image quality, but they consume a lot of your available bitrate, so they reduce the quality on high motion content. Therefore, I don't recommend you enable this, as it can cause your image to look muddy and pixelated due to it jumping between the number of B-frames available on your tab. The next one we have here is called psychovisual tuning, which essentially, if ticked, enables the rate distortion optimization in your encoder, which will greatly optimize the way you use bitrate, improving image quality on movement. The last two options is GPU and max B-frames. Basically, GPU is just selecting what GPU you're going to be running your stream on. Putting it on 0 means this is your primary GPU. However, if you have more than one and you want to choose the other GPU as your encoding GPU, then this will change depending on what number slot your GPU falls into. The last option we have is the max B-frames. B-frames are like extra keyframes, but instead of showing up consistently, they only show up as needed. This is done by looking both at the previous frame and the upcoming frame and inserting a new frame as needed. We tend to keep only to a 2 max B frame, as you won't be adding too many B frames in between your keyframes. Okay, so now to move on to CPU encoding, aka when you select the X264 encoder in your OBS output settings. First thing you're going to choose is obviously, as before mentioned, your rate control, which will be CBR for a constant bitrate flow to your stream server. Next, you'll be choosing the bitrate at what your stream will be running at, as previously explained, so I won't be going over this. Same thing with the keyframes, you keep this at 2. Here is the kicker, the main mamma jamma for your CPU encoding. This CPU preset is what determines how crisp and clear your image will look like on your stream. Now, if you have a decent CPU that can handle encoding, which is something you'll have to test out yourself, you can play around with fast and faster. However, do not go below fast, as if you go medium, slower and slower, the lower it goes, the more encoding power it requires. Now, the same goes for the opposite direction. If your stream is struggling on fast, just choose faster, and at the last option, very fast. However, please do not go to super fast or ultra fast. It may save you some CPU power, but the image will look absolute trash. Just stick to these 3 options if you're going to be using your CPU streaming as a single PC streamer. And same thing as before with the NVIDIA encoder options, the profile, you're going to be choosing high or main, depending on how well your system can handle it. Next option we have is tune. Now, you don't have to choose anything here. It is most recommended to choose none, as choosing anything here is negligible and actually can sometimes make your image look worse. So just stick to none, as that is a recommended option for CPU encoding. And the very last option is the X264 options, which is essentially just extra commands, which is basically what this is, except this is something that you have to input yourself. However, it's completely unnecessary. Your stream should look perfectly fine as is with the previously mentioned settings that we've explained already. And that should cover it, guys. That is for both CPU encoding and NVIDIA GPU encoding. If you guys want to see how to set up an AMD GPU as the encoding option and what settings to use for a good quality stream, please let me know. However, as I previously said, I do not recommend using an AMD GPU as an encoder, as the AMD GPUs do not have a dedicated encoding hardware on the GPU. Okay, so now to get to the final section of the video, which will be dealing with audio. First, the thing you want to do is you want to go to your filters for your microphone, and you will see here all the filters I currently have enabled. For you guys, if you want to just cut out any background audio, such as your PC or a fan or something running in the background, and you want your microphone to stay silent and don't want any noise to come through when you're not speaking, this is what you're going to be using a noise gate or noise suppression for. And then the third option is a compressor, and this will essentially keep your volume level for your stream at a constant so that you do not peak over into a red, and the same goes for the opposite. If you're speaking too softly, this will allow your stream mic audio to be boosted to keep to a consistent rate that the stream can always hear you, so don't sound like you're just fading away into the background. So let's get started. First things first, you're going to pick the little plus icon here and you're going to add a noise suppression. Now, The wonderful thing of the OBS updates is if you have the latest OBS 26 update, it's when they introduced this new noise suppression software, the RN noise suppressor. Now this is basically a AI controlled noise suppression software option. The software encoded into OBS will automatically detect the background noise that is not supposed to be coming through your microphone, like fan noise, AC, dogs barking, etc. All this background room noise essentially will get filtered out and just give you pure noise coming from the front for your mic from you speaking. Please do not use the speaks option, as this is the old noise suppression option for OBS and is completely outdated and really bad compared to the new RN noise. And they say lower CPU usage, however the CPU cost for using RN noise is probably 1% at most, so just stick to RN noise, guys. It's way better. Just for argument's sake, here's how speaks noise suppression sounds like on my microphone. And if you just jump back to RN noise, and there you go. Next filter you're going to be using is the noise gate, so named in the list as well, noise gate right over here. And what a noise gate does, it basically tells your microphone when to shut off and when to open up, or when you want a specific volume of noise to come through your microphone, such as you speaking. Now, to find out what level you need to put your closed threshold at, is you simply need to monitor your room noise over here. And to showcase to you guys this in real time, I'm going to turn off all my effects and you'll see what my actual room noise is without the noise suppression and noise gate running. There you go. As you can see, this is what it sounds like without the noise suppression and the compression and noise gate running. And as you would notice, my room noise is sitting around minus 50 dB. And to ensure that my microphone's noise gate close threshold always activates, I like to keep a 5 dB difference from my noise room floor. So I put it at minus 55. To choose what type of open threshold levels you want to have, I basically choose a 15 dB difference from my closed threshold. As you can see, I have 55 and my open threshold is 40. Right in between would be my noise room level, which is 50. So that is how I determined it. However, you do not want to make the open threshold too aggressive, as if your volume level for your microphone does not reach the dB level that you are setting this to, the open threshold will not activate and your microphone won't open up to allow audio through. As you would see, mine is 40 and 40 is over there. That means my microphone is picking up my audio pretty easily, as I am sitting around 25 to 20 dB on average, just from regular speaking. The reason I'm warning you against being too aggressive is if you put your open threshold too harshly, your words will get cut off, as the open threshold will stop working and it will essentially just be a closed threshold and no audio will go through your microphone. To give you guys a real-time example, again, so enable my noise gate, I have minus 55, and remember my noise room level is 50, so if I had to put this, it was fluctuating between 50 and 45, so if I had to put this at say 40, you see the noise gate does not close the microphone's receiving audio, as the noise close threshold is above what the microphone is constantly picking up from the noise room. However, if I just bring it back down to 55, there you go. The background noise is eliminated and the close threshold is activated. Now, to display what a open threshold does if it's too aggressive, I'm going to activate this thing up until 30. You see I can still speak. It is still hearing me perfectly fine at 30 dB. At 25. See, it's still picking me up, but it's struggling a little bit. However, if I'm going to keep speaking like this, I will eventually cut out when I hit 20 to there. I have completely cut out entirely once I hit around about 20 to minus 15 dB. That's why you want to keep around only a 15 dB difference from your closed threshold, as that is a safe level to keep your microphone from cutting off any of your words you're speaking. If sometimes you speak a little soft, you have a little bit of room for your dB levels to stay consistent. Now for attack and hold and release time, I can't remember if this is the default settings. However, this is perfectly fine. You can just copy these settings. It works perfectly fine. Now, last filter we'll be adding is the compressor. As previously mentioned, the compressor is what essentially keeps your stream volume for your audio, for your microphone at a consistent rate. So if you're going to be speaking softly, your viewers will still hear you as if you were speaking loudly. You are free to copy the settings I have currently, as I found this is a very good balance level for my microphone. However, please do tweak around with it if it doesn't come through as nicely as you would want it to. But do keep to a 4:1 ratio, as if you increase the ratio past 4, you're essentially just setting a limiter instead of compressing it, and that is completely besides the point of what we're trying to achieve here. However, if you put it too low, like say a 1:1 ratio, there's literally zero compression happening because it's just straight feedback into the filter, and there's no filter actually happening. So I recommend a 4:1 ratio, as I found this works the best for when I want to speak loud and when I want to speak softly. So to give you guys an example in real time, again, I'm going to start speaking softly into the microphone with the compressor enabled, and I'm going to start speaking loudly. However, do not worry, it won't peak into the red, and I won't fade off in the background by speaking too softly, as the compressor will be doing its job. To give you guys an example, this is what it sounds like when I'm just whispering into the microphone, same distance away as what I was speaking when I was normally speaking. And this is what it sounds like when I'm speaking very loudly into the microphone. So that's basically an example of how the compressor works. Now, if I turn it off, you'll see a big difference in how I speak when I don't have the compressor on. This is basically how it sounds like when I'm whispering into the microphone, the same way I did before the compressor enabled. And this is what it sounds like when I have the compressor enabled and speaking very loudly. Hope that wasn't too bad, guys, but that is essentially how the compressor works. It just equalizes out your volume level for your microphone audio to your stream, so it doesn't peak over too much and it doesn't just fade away. Now, some of you might want to use the output gain just to bump up the dB of your volume if your microphone is a little too soft. If you want it to be a little bit louder, once you hit that threshold level, the compressor will activate the output gain plus 1 dB for every 4 dB it passes that 20 dB threshold. Give us an example. As you can see, it's getting very loud and louder and louder and louder and louder. There you go. You can see it's getting louder and louder and louder. Now, you don't want to go into the negative, as you want your viewers to hear you clearly. So just keep that to 0 or amp it up if your microphone is too soft. And that is essentially it, guys. That is how you do noise suppression. Very simple. Just choose RN noise. You're done and dusted. Noise gate. Figure out your room noise. Set it up. -15 from that number. That is your open threshold. Easy. Finish and clear. Compressor. Keep to a 4:1 ratio. And mess with the threshold level of what your microphone is picking up. Keep your attack to 1 millisecond, as you want your compressor to activate all the time, immediately. 100 milliseconds release is fine. So that's essentially it. If you guys want me to cover extra filters such as equalizers and third-party plugins such as a wider, please let me know in the comments below, and I will look into making a video for that. However, this is it for your microphone filters for now, and let's jump into our last and final tip of audio for your stream. Okay, so to get into the last tip is we're going to be setting up a audio effect called audio ducking. Now, to do this, we'll be going into your desktop audio folder settings and going into filters. And what the desktop audio is for me basically is this is where all my gameplay audio, where my music on YouTube, whatever is played through, all my other audio on my PC gets played through this. And then this is the microphone here. So what you're going to do is you're going to add the compressor filter. As you can see, it's there. And then the first thing you do is you're going to choose the ducking source. Now what this is it's going to tell the compressor what audio source must it monitor in order to take effect of the settings we're going to be running on this audio source. So you're going to choose the little thing here, but just select the mic aux option, as this is the microphone option audio source. So as previously explained in the mic filters compressor, keep to a 4:1 ratio, as this is the most potent and effective ratio for the compressor effect. The threshold though, this will determine on how soft you want the desktop audio background noise to be lowered down to if it reaches that specific point. Say the desktop audio is playing at 45 dB, like I have selected here. You want this ratio to kick in at a 4:1 ratio. For every 4 dB levels above the 45 threshold, it lowers the dB volume by total by 1 dB with the 4:1 ratio of the compressor. Now, you don't want it to attack too quickly, as that will just give a big jump in the audio levels. You want it to fade out slowly into the background, saying, okay, this is now the music you started speaking. So you want the background noise to drop down slowly as you start speaking. 25 millisecond attack speed is perfectly fine for that. For release, it's the same deal. You don't want it to release too quickly, because the second you stop speaking, you don't want it to jump up to back to max volume. So I recommend a nice 600 milliseconds delay to allow it to fade back into the max volume as what it was before once you stop speaking. Output gain. Now, this is something you only want to be either put at 0 or negative dB. What this will do is, as soon as the compressor notices a audio level coming through from the mic audio here, you want the output gain to kick in, and by making it less, you amp up the compression of the audio levels down more by 5 dB on top of the compression ratio that you got going here. So to give you guys an example of how this sounds like, I'm going to be playing some chill tunes in the background. There we go. So as you would notice, the audio is jumping to 25 to 30 with the music playing, and when I'm busy speaking, thanks to the compressor it's running here, it is basically bringing it down to 45 to 50 dB, just to keep my audio levels from my microphone way above the background noise of the music that's playing in the background, as that is essentially supposed to be the background relaxing tunes, and my voice is supposed to be the main focus. Now I'm going to show you guys the difference if I turned it off and having this background music playing. There we go. So this is essentially what it will sound like with me speaking and no audio ducking effect happening. It's basically running at the same volume level as my microphone. So just to show you guys an example again, I'll be speaking constantly and I'm enabling it right now, and as you would notice, the desktop audio volume has dropped down significantly, down to 50 to 45 dB, and it just makes speaking on your stream all that much better, as this will affect all the audio such as your gameplay, music, etc. Everything will just get dropped down so that you can have a nice clear dialogue on your stream. Cool. So that is basically how a compressor works. You can mess around with the threshold levels to fine tune it to the level of your system is required. And here we are, guys, at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this was informative and it helped you guys out in how to set up your streams, and made a little of these settings a little more clear as to why they are there and why you are setting them up in the specific way they are. If you guys have any suggestions or questions about what I covered in this video, please drop in the comments down below. I'll happily look into what you want to see next and make a video on that. However, if you enjoy this content, please hit the like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care for now.